What if the person you're fighting so hard to keep is the very person breaking you? We don't talk about this enough. How sometimes the bravest, most loving thing you can do is to walk away. Not because you're cruel, but because you finally chose you. I remember the first time I felt it, that small, sharp sting in my chest that I tried so hard to ignore. It was during what should have been a harmless dinner with friends. Someone I trusted, someone I called my person, made a joke at my expense. It was subtle, wrapped in charm and laughter, and everyone else laughed along, but me, I froze. I smiled, because that's what we're taught to do. I laughed, but inside something cracked. I felt small, exposed, like I had been stripped bare in front of people who were supposed to feel safe. That night I lay in bed replaying it over and over. And then all of a sudden, I lay in bed replaying it over and over. My brain tried to make sense of it. Maybe I'm too sensitive, maybe I imagined it. They were just joking. That's what I told myself, because the alternative, that someone I loved had just hurt me on purpose, even a little, was too painful to sit with. So I swallowed it, I minimized it, I let it slide. And that's how it begins, doesn't it? The tiny betrayals, the moments when we feel that first tug in our gut, that whisper that something is off, but we choose to stay silent. We choose to smooth it over because we're afraid. Afraid of making waves, afraid of looking dramatic, afraid of losing them. The truth is, these small betrayals aren't small at all. They're the first tiny cuts that tell us we're starting to abandon ourselves. Every time we excuse the disrespect, every time we choose their comfort over our dignity, we're teaching ourselves that our worth is negotiable. Psychologists call this micro-betrayal, those small acts of disloyalty we accept for the sake of connection. And over time, those micro-betrayals add up. They teach our nervous system that being hurt is the cost of being loved. And that is a lie we carry for far too long. What I wish I had known then, what I want you to hear now, is this. The smallest betrayal is often the loudest whisper. It's your soul saying, you deserve more. And the sooner you listen, the sooner you stop the bleeding. There was a season in my life when I clung to a relationship that was slowly hollowing me out. I'd wake up every morning with a weight on my chest, not because something had happened, but because nothing had changed. The silences were getting longer. The apologies felt emptier. The moments that once felt like home now felt like I was walking on glass. And still, I stayed. I stayed because the thought of being alone felt more terrifying than the ache of staying. I convinced myself that what I had was better than the emptiness I imagined would follow if I left. I told myself that being with someone, anyone, was proof that I mattered, that I was wanted, that I wasn't unlovable. And isn't that what keeps so many of us trapped? It's not just the fear of walking away from them, it's the fear of what we might hear in the silence that follows. The fear of facing the questions we've been running from. Am I enough on my own? Will anyone ever truly see me? What's heartbreaking and so deeply human is that our brains are wired for connection. From the time we are infants, we are taught that connection means survival. So when a relationship, no matter how unhealthy, offers us that thread of connection, we grip it with both hands, even if it's fraying, even if it's strangling us. But here's what I've learned, both from my own journey and from the stories of so many brave souls who've sat across from me, eyes filled with tears. Loneliness with your integrity intact is a softer place to land than company that costs you your self-worth. The fear of being alone is powerful, but it's a fear built on lies we've inherited. The lie that we're incomplete without someone else. The lie that solitude equals failure. The lie that our worth is measured by who chooses to stay. What I know now is this. Being alone isn't what breaks us. Staying in spaces where we have to betray ourselves to feel loved, that is what breaks us. And the moment we begin to see that truth, we start to set ourselves free. I'll never forget the moment I truly saw it. The moment I realized I wasn't in a relationship anymore. I was in a constant state of negotiation, negotiating for time, for kindness, for basic consideration. I was standing at my kitchen counter, phone in hand, staring at a text I'd just sent. "Are we okay?" It was a simple message, but behind it was a storm. Behind it were nights spent waiting for calls that never came, plans canceled at the last minute, words that stung but were passed off as just being honest. And there I was, heart racing over a message that was really asking, "Am I still worth it to you? Will you throw me even a little something to keep me holding on?" That's what begging for the bare minimum looks like. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, it's quiet, it's subtle. It's the slow shrinking of yourself. It's lowering the bar inch by inch until crumbs feel like a feast. And it happens so gradually that you don't even realize you're starving. Until one day you do. Until one day you're standing in that kitchen, or lying in that bed, or looking in that mirror, and it hits you. I'm asking for what should have been given freely. I'm pleading for the things I offer without hesitation. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, when love, attention, or validation is given unpredictably. It keeps us hooked. It creates a cycle where the rare good moments feel so euphoric because they're surrounded by absence. Our brains light up when we finally get that small hit of affection and we start to chase it, desperate for more, even as we're being starved. But let's tell the truth, no one says out loud. The bare minimum isn't love, it's survival crumbs. And you were never meant to survive on crumbs. You were meant to be nourished, seen, held in your full humanity. When you find yourself waiting for the apology that doesn't come, the text that never arrives, the change that never happens, pause, breathe, and remember, you are not too much for wanting what's basic. You are simply asking for what should have been sacred. And it's okay, more than okay, to stop begging and start walking. When I finally said no to that relationship, when I finally drew the line that I'd been too afraid to draw for so long, I thought I'd feel powerful. I thought I'd feel free. And for a brief moment, I did. There was this rush, like I could finally breathe after holding it for too long. But then the grief came, the unexpected, gut-wrenching grief. I remember sitting in my room, staring at the empty space where their things had been, feeling like I'd ripped out a piece of myself. Not because they were good for me, not because the relationship had been healthy, but because I had tied so much of my identity, my hope, my someday to them. Saying no felt like tearing down the house I'd been building in my mind for years. No one prepares you for that part, the part where your heart aches not just for the person, but for the fantasy of who they might have been, for the moments you almost had, for the future you kept imagining, even as reality kept showing you otherwise. What I've come to understand through my own heartbreak and through listening to countless brave souls is that saying no doesn't just end the relationship. To find the peace is to find the power. It ends the illusion, and that's a loss we have to mourn. Psychologists call this ambiguous grief. The sorrow we feel over something that was never fully real or never fully ours. It's the mourning of what could have been, and it's just as real as grieving what was. Our brains don't distinguish between the loss of what existed and the loss of what we longed for. The ache is the same. And so we sit in that grief, We question ourselves. Did I do the right thing? Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I should have stayed. Because grief clouds our memory. It tries to convince us that the pain of leaving is worse than the pain of staying. But here's the truth I want you to hold on to. The truth I had to learn the hard way. Courage doesn't always feel like strength in the moment. Sometimes courage feels like heartbreak. Sometimes it looks like tears on your pillow at 2 a.m. Sometimes it sounds like silence where there used to be noise. But it's still courage, and it's still sacred. Saying no will break your heart, not because you're weak, but because you're finally choosing to honor it. And that is the beginning of healing. There was a night, long after I had said no, long after the dust had settled, when I sat alone on my porch, the world around me quiet in that way it only is when you've stopped bracing for impact. I had no one's mood to manage, no one's silence to interpret, no one's approval to chase. For the first time in what felt like forever, I just was. And I realized something in that stillness. All those years, I thought I was fighting for love. I was really fighting not to be abandoned. I was twisting myself into shapes I didn't recognize, shrinking, bending, breaking, not for love, but for the illusion of safety. And in that moment, I saw it so clearly. Choosing myself had never been about walking away from them. It had always been about finally walking toward me. We don't talk about this enough. How quiet it is when you finally choose yourself. There's no parade, no one claps. There's no immediate relief or rush of joy. There's just space. Space that feels terrifying at first because it's unfamiliar. But slowly, gently, that space becomes sacred. It becomes yours. What psychology shows us, and what I've lived, is that self-compassion is the foundation of resilience. When we choose ourselves, we begin to repair the damage done by all the times we didn't. We start rewriting the story from I am unworthy unless someone chooses me to I am worthy because I choose me. And here's the miracle in that. The more we choose ourselves, the less we tolerate the things that once broke us. The less we beg, the less we betray ourselves. The more we attract people who see us, not the version we perform, but the truth of who we are. I want to tell you something that I wish someone had told me. The quietest moments after choosing yourself are where your power lives. Not in the noise of proving, not in the chase, but in the peace that comes from no longer abandoning who you are. That is the love story you've been waiting for. That is the relationship that changes everything. So if you're standing on that edge, wondering if it's worth it, if choosing yourself will be enough, I promise you, it's more than enough. It's everything. And it's where the rest of your life begins. So if you're standing at that edge, heart racing, voice shaking, wondering if you have the strength to say no, know this. The moment you do, the universe rearranges itself to meet you at that brave place. And that's where your real life begins.